Hello, a very good morning to you and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, and on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Welcome to the show. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. He's been there, seen it all, except to be president. Nana Addo, will he be third time lucky without copyright over that free SHS song? Well, he will first need to jump the hurdle within his own MPP. And is the governing NDC truly excited at his return or scared to death? We will try and go to the Republic of the University of Ghana. Why are many angry? Tell you the truth, you don't really need an immigration lawyer to secure a visa to make a transit there. Nemo dat quod non habet. It's a legal maxim, meaning you don't give what you don't have, can you? Well, our neighbor in Dak will brighten our Doomsor corner. The Energy Minister will tell us how. Once again, you're welcome. The show is live from your Joynews Studios channel, from the Multi-TV studios here in Accra. It is live on Love FM in Kumasi and also on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations. Subsequently, it's available on the ABN television. That is your Sky channel 290. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis platform on television and on radio. And my guests are seated, and we're going to have very, very interesting discussion today. I'm glad to announce to you Abdul Malik Okubako Jr., the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, is in the house as always. He's a regular panelist, Dr. Clement Park. He is a presidential staffer. Prior to this, I don't know, he's still very vocal in the front lines of championing freedom and justice. How is that your group doing now?
It's doing fairly well.
Doing well.
The boys who have taken over are very active. In fact, we have a case in court against the TUC.
And you have done well in that respect by going beyond talking and always going to court to get some judgments about matters that you are not happy about. And the former Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Ni Ayikwe-Otu, a private legal practitioner, and also with the New Patriotic Party. Good morning and welcome, Senior.
Thank you.
We also have a Deputy Minister. He's a Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Interior, James Agalga. How are you this morning?
My brother,
great,
fine.
Great to have you. Now, the guys are seated. They are ready to do justice to the various issues that we have to discuss here. So get ready and also join us via 1422. That is a text line. You can also send your messages to me directly to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. You may also post them on our Facebook wall, and we will share them with the rest of the world, like Kojo will always say. Now, he says that I feel spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, physically, and patriotically strong enough to remain in the helly belly of frontline politics. Let's hear what else he had to say and subject him to scrutiny. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Thank the Almighty God that I'm able to say that I feel spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, physically and patriotically strong enough to remain in the hurly-burly of frontline politics. With great humility, therefore, I can announce that when the party opens nominations sometime this year, I shall be ready, God willing, to contest for the position of NPP presidential candidate for the 2016 general election.
Right, and that is the 2012 presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, the biggest opposition party in the country. And he says he's ready for a comeback. We're asking, will he be third time lucky? The NDC describes him in various ways, including that he's a sunset candidate, so to speak. That's according to General Mosquito, the NDC's General Secretary, Johnson Asiedu Nketiah. Well, Dr. Akufo-Addo thinks otherwise, and he says his announcement is a wake-up call to John Mahama to deliver his political, his electoral promises. But he is also very certain about the fact that he will be defeated a third time. Well, I'm sure the question on the lips of many is, so long as he doesn't have copyright over the Free SHS song, how is he going to fare in the next elections without the absolute control of that program? And that's how we start our discussion today. And I would like to first start with the Honorable Akufo-Addo. Certainly, I was listening to his speech, and I said that you don't have to like him to observe and admire his speech. There's a certain fineness to it, there's a certain signature to it, and I have every conviction that it's not written for him. He always writes his own speeches. In the same way that you may admire or just can't help but admire John Mahama for the way his swag with the things that the youth do with iPad and stuff. When Akufo-Addo began to give his speech, he said something, and I'm wondering if at that point you didn't pause to ask yourself, really, is he going to contest as we said? He said, thanks for accepting my invitation, even though I am told most of you claim to know already what I am going to say. I do hope I don't disappoint you. Did you stop at that point and say, is he going to do something differently?
Well, thank you. In a run-up to the conference, we've heard its aides, speak on radio, and Mustafa Ahmed in particular had made it clear that he would do the wishes of the people.
Right.
So if they knew exactly what he was going to say already, then it is in that light that one may want to look at it.
And maybe I shouldn't be putting that question to you because you certainly must be one of those that he consulted, because he's told us that he consulted widely.
Yes, the point of the matter is that he's a well-known figure. Is the most marketed of the MPP aspirants so far. He made it clear that he wanted to take some time off and will be coming back. So clearly people were looking forward to wanting to find out from him whether he would still want to contest or maybe he's had a change of mind. But he said he's consulted his doctors and all that and made very wild consultations, and he's satisfied that he thinks he has what it takes to go back when the nomination is open. So I wasn't surprised though. I wasn't surprised at all.
Okay, just your preliminary comments. Now I'll move to you, Abdul Malik. We sat here the last week and I said, look, we know what he's going to say already. So what's the big deal? What's the point of a grand occasion for an announcement? Were you satisfied with the program itself?
Well, I wasn't there, but had been announced ahead of time. A time frame had been set, and we all knew exactly what was going to come based on what had been said by people around him. You know, those who were there thought was well organized, well attended, and as you indicated, the speech was well delivered. I mean, it's not new. He's a very articulate. You can
always trust him for that.
Yes, very articulate.
You can't take that away from him.
Yes, very experienced and all that. So, in terms of the setup and in terms of his own personality and delivery, body language, everything was almost perfect. I mean, and what he said was to be expected. Yes, I had a little problem, as you know, in terms of the timing and things, but that's not substantive issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Park.
What exactly is the question?
You have marked.
Oh, you were not listening.
You have marked, and I've seen.
It is too obvious. That is why I'm not saying.
I have seen that you have done a sort of an annotation of the speech.
Yes, I have.
You have marked almost every paragraph and written your own.
My own interpretation.
Yes, to them. What do you say about it?
Well, I think that anyone who has followed Ghanaian politics in the past several years and particularly observed the posturing, even during the petition at the Supreme Court, and of course, as my two earlier senior colleagues indicated, follow the pronouncements by Mr. Akufo-Addo's aides, the announcement was not a surprise. I think it would have rather been news if he had announced that he was not going to offer himself as a possible candidate for his party in the lead up to the 2016 election. But I think that the way it was done, the pomp and pageantry that greeted his arrival, and even the setup for this announcement was intended to scare off potential rivals from within the party. Because, I mean, be as it may, this is not the normal way for one to announce your intent to contest for your party's flag bearership.
Just to scare off potential rivals, and not intended to give you guys a signal that you got to watch out.
Certainly not. I mean, you know, he has to first clear the first hurdle before he can think about the second one.
Right. Now, okay, James has to, the technical men have to do a little rearrangement with his stuff, so he would have his bites later. I want to start with Abdul Malik Kubako Jr. on this. Nana Addo, certainly very towering political figure in the, not the contemporary history of Ghanaian politics, but dating back very far. And see what he says. He says that I am humbled by the opportunities that I have had to contribute to the development of our nation from the struggle against military dictatorship. So he was there long ago. Through protecting the rights of ordinary Ghanaians in the law courts and on the streets, to the consolidation of our democracy and the projection of our national interest. First, in building the new patriotic party, and also as a member of parliament and cabinet. Question people are asking, what at all does he want?
He wants to serve his nation, his people. That's the bottom line, especially of any honest and sincere politician. And there are a lot of them out there, let's be honest. It is not exclusive to him, but he feels committed to nation building, to put Ghana on a certain path. He's outlined his vision already, transforming this country, industrializing it. I mean, we may differ on strategies and ideological directions and the rest, but the commitment is clear. And indeed, of course, his experience is clear. I mean, it's obvious to anybody who wants to be fair and honest with the history of this country. I happen to have been a foot soldier of the People's Movement for Freedom and Justice. And he was the General Secretary of that movement. I'm talking of 1977-78. So I at least know his track record. Subsequently, both of us were founding members of the Alliance for Change. We're all part of the Alliance for Democratic Forces when we're entering the Fourth Republic, insisting on certain democratization processes. So it's part of our ideological differences, because we belong to two different ideological blocks in terms of this country's history. But we've always had a certain commitment in terms of ensuring that this country is ruled democratically according to the rule of law. And on that basis, I have no doubt at all that this is a political colossus, you know, very committed, very honest, very sincere. That's my own judgment of Nana Akufo-Addo, and nobody can change that, you understand? But as I said, it doesn't have monopoly over these attributes. There are other Ghanaians who equally have it. And it's good to have a critical mass of these qualities, of these attributes, because when they aggregate, then you are building a nation.
His critics say he comes across as suggesting that I have a birthright to the presidency of this country. Otherwise, he's seen it all except being president. Isn't that enough at 70 to take a rest?
Let those who talk about age begin a campaign to legislate it, that at a certain point in time, at a certain attainment of a certain age, you cannot be a president. And they will realize that they are only marketing an absurdity, and nobody will listen to them. But let them have the courage to come forward and make that an issue for public debate and possible legislation. You will see the absurdity. It will be so manifest that we need not talk about it. But let me just say, as I said, his track record is clear. He's also contributed. Look, legal pro bono, is that what you people say? Those of us in the media.
That's free legal service.
Yes, who went through all sorts of difficulties, both under constitutional and non-constitutional periods, know the support that Akufo-Addo personally, as well as his chambers, offered us pro bono. Many of the cases that we went through, whether it was criminal libel, seditious libel, or civil libel, he was there for us. And I'm not talking about myself alone. I'm talking about so many other journalists and media houses out there. When it came to piloting the legislation, the bill, is it bill, to repeal the criminal and seditious libel, he was Kufuor's Attorney General. Of course, it was an executive action, but he was the one who, and because he had gone through the processes, and so he did so. That NRC, which was bastardized at one stage, but subsequently adopted. If you read the Constitutional Review Commission's preamble and all those things that went in, they recognized the value of the National Reconciliation Commission and what went through, and even the fact that it had the effect of reducing possible judgment debts and all the rest. He was key in piloting that in through Parliament, as well as making sure it worked. He has had a lot of things to his credit, and so why not? If he thinks, based on all this exposure and experience, I could contribute to my country as a president, why not? He's not imposing himself. If he was, that would be a problematic matter. He is seeking first to win a primary election within the context of his party, and subsequent to that, a national election based on the will and power of the electorate. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? How many Ghanaians have not sought the same opportunity and achieved it? Some did it 3, 4, 5 times, if you add runoffs and the rest, and they still went ahead and won. What's wrong with that? If at the end of the day you don't win and you voluntarily decide to give up, fine. And operative word, voluntarily. Because there's no legal bar based on his record. Unless he's been convicted and is been found guilty by a committee of inquiry or commission of inquiry, unless he doesn't have the appropriate age, which is 40 and above. Those things don't exist relative to the Akufo-Addo candidature. Nothing of that sort. No negative exists relative to it. As for those allegations, I'm sure will come in, because I've heard people already going into those directions and discredited, recycled. I nearly said nonsense. Should be not encouraged.
All right, Abdul Malik Kubako Jr. James, I hope there was no any need for any special security arrangements when he went to, do the announcements.
Well, if you watched the video, the police were there in their numbers to ensure that the program was smooth and peaceful. The state doesn't discriminate when it comes to deploying the security apparatus to guarantee security at any given time. So what you saw at Nana Addo's residence was a typical example of how impartial the security apparatus under this government is.
Elsewhere in a very developed democracy,
it's always been like that.
When an opposition figure like Nana Addo is going to mount a stage to make a statement, you are not going to have the ordinary security, just doing their work. There may be some, beyond that security arrangements.
But
it didn't call for any such thing.
Well, Sabi, in other jurisdictions, of course, I can't hold brief for whatever happens there. But as far as we are concerned, that is not how we operate.
Right.
We allow our security agencies to operate freely, and I believe Nana Addo must have put in a request. He must have notified the police, because he knows what the position of the law is. Reading through his political history, I am told he was very instrumental in prosecuting, in that case, the MPP versus the Inspector General of Police, which clearly set out the parameters for public gatherings and demonstrations. So I have no doubt in my mind that Nana must have requested for security cover, and that was granted.
Right.
After the program, I have not heard anybody complain that there was some suspicious movement on the part of undercover agents and so on and so forth. So our men were very professional on that occasion, and I can only say congrats.
Now, substantively, speaking from your heart of hearts, that's the NDC not dread another time with Nana Addo?
Well, Sami, I think the earlier, speakers have made the point very clear, and my General Secretary spoke, and when he spoke, I was very refreshed. Why would we be afraid of Nana Addo's intentions to run for a third consecutive time? It is up to the MPP to decide. But if the MPP ever settles on Nana Addo, I can tell you without blinking an eye that we have an antidote for Nana. Twice we defeated him. Even when he took the lead in 2008 and people thought it was an impossible task for the NDC to reverse the outcome, we were able to reverse that outcome at time.
By what margin?
Well, the margins don't matter.
The slimmest margin ever in the political history of this country.
It doesn't matter if you consider the fact that we came in as underdogs. After Nana Addo having taken the lead in the first round, people thought it was a done deal, and we rose up to the occasion and defeated Nana. That was, landmarked. I don't think anybody, in his a right frame of mind, particularly those from the MPP camp, ever thought that they were going to lose that election. But we inflicted a defeat on Nana. Then in 2012, we all saw what happened. He was beaten in the first round. He said no, he had doubts about his defeat. He went to the Supreme Court. As for the pain the Supreme Court litigation caused all of us, I will leave that to the good people of this country to judge. But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court did not give him the declaration he most desired. And so if you ask me, I will tell you that in 2012 alone, Nana lost twice. So why should the NDC be afraid of such a person? Especially when it wasn't a secret that he would run for a third consecutive time. That's all the earlier speakers before me said. His aides had constantly alluded to the fact that Nana was going to run once more. And so for me, whatever happened 2 days ago was the icing on the cake. I was not taken by surprise at all. And if you ask me, my candid opinion is that that declaration by Nana was not newsy at all. No, what the General Secretary, what the General Secretary did was to analyze the history.
He's referring to the press conference that was, addressed by the General Secretary of the NDC minutes after, Nana Addo had made his announcement.
It's normal. The General Secretary didn't invite those press people.
He did.
Look, I was in Parliament. Moments after, and in fact, I must state that the NPP members of Parliament, the majority of them I don't want to be dragged to the privileges committee, but I noticed that the majority of them were not in the house when the declaration was about to be made. You see, now, moments after the declaration, the parliamentary press corps, some of them rushed to me and wanted me to deliver an opinion on Nana's declaration. And I said, listen, I was in the chamber. I did not listen to the man, and therefore it would be unfair for you to come to me and ask me to make statements on a matter I am not privy to.
So in fact,
so the point.
The press did not call the press conference for the NDC.
Right.
The NDC organized the press conference.
But it's also important to put it out there that Johnson Asiedu Nketiah says that he began to have too many calls from the press, and he took the decision that it was wise to bring all of them together to speak to them once and for all.
He was under no compelling obligation to do so. No, listen, he was under no compelling conditions. It doesn't matter. If you spoke individually, it would have been different. This is the general secretary of the ruling party holding a press conference. The press did not put a gun to his head and asked him to hold a press conference and talk on the issue.
But what is wrong with him speaking to the issue?
Nobody is saying it's wrong. I am saying that that's a knee-jerk, premature reaction. And that shows the power in what had happened before he was
reacting. Your interpretation.
Of course.
So just take it easy. You'll have your turn. And I must say that this show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of MTN. Welcome to the new world, Lipton Tea, that is inspiration flowing from nature. Star Assurance, that is your solid partner, and Errata Motors, that's where you get the best vehicles for the lowest prices. Now we have a new partner, and that is Sasso Insecticide Spray, mosquito spray, and you know it, they say Sasso Kumuntuntum Preko. Mr. Aikotu, the Nanado says that he has searched himself. He's done sufficient soul searching, including communing with his God. Consulting with as many as are important and need to be consulted. He says that there were a lot of agents that came from members of the public, even people who are not MPP members. He said almost on a daily basis he was getting text messages, phone calls, and whatever medium was used. And he says that I cannot ignore these calls. Is he suggesting that he would have decided otherwise but for these, calls on him?
Well, thank you. Before I answer that, let me react quickly to one or two points made by my colleague on the left. He makes the point that in 2008, when everything looked impossible, they were able to beat Nana. I don't think that he has looked at the facts properly. It was the other parties coming together that helped to beat Nana. It was not the NDC in 2008. And again in the Supreme Court, it was again very, very close 5-4 split decision. So it should not create the impression that it was some kind of useless venture that the party or Nana and his people, embarked upon. Now, coming to the reality, your question, the point is, if you've not been into politics, sometimes when people say these things, you wonder, and you ask yourself, don't they have a mind of their own? There people say, oh, I'm being dragged into it, I'm being pressurized into it. I must tell you, for example, that for a very long time, I was seriously pressurized into contesting the position of chairmanship of the party.
You've announced it.
Yes. So these things are real, and I have no doubt at all that if he says that they really happened, I would not have any doubt about it. It should not take anything away from him for people to suggest that, are you saying that if you had not been asked by those people or pressurized, you would not have done? In fact, it is the case that you get when, for example, our brother Apak, I do not think that doctor was known to be a very serious NDC activist. But he did things that maybe the president thought was in the interest of the NDC and could be brought to his office to come and assist him. That is drafting him literally into the office. He did not turn it down. He has accepted it and is now a very well-known NDC apologist. But before then, we thought he was doing NGO matters. So these things do happen. People could be drafted into politics when they are not even thought about it. So I think that, quite apart from the fact that Nana might have, on his own, might have wished perhaps not to run again, these calls, the wide consultations, and when we come down to the issue of marketing, we always say that, you see, maybe the first time you were not properly marketed. Sometimes it is said, oh, we didn't have sufficient time. At the time you were elected a presidential candidate, we were almost like 1 year, a little time into the election. So this time round, let's give you 2 years and the rest. So marketing also plays a role, and especially so, although we'll come to discuss this issue of free SHS, when some of your ideas are now being literally stolen, and then put out there. It means that there's something that you have. We shouldn't forget about this SADA thing, which he had also previously spoken about, how to help the northern sector, which then became SADA. So there is something out there that you feel, perhaps if I'm given the chance, I could do it better, because I did say that some of these ideas have been taken away from us, but we do not believe that they are even being implemented the way we would have loved to do it. So, to answer your question, yes, it's not a strange thing at all when people put a lot of pressure on an individual.
He said that he had thought hard about that decision. He had asked himself the hard questions, and that he had examined himself. There are some, even within the party, that suggest that he's not learned his lessons as he claims he has.
You see, to me, I think the age factor is something that, when he says he has examined himself, is something that perhaps he was looking at. In 1979, it was a huge problem for Pawili, because people felt at his age he should rather would have loved others to run. Surely this thing is going to come up, because people will start using the age. I would say that the NPP also made a big meal out of it when Atani was not well before he died. That if you go and vote for such a person, the chances are that he will not be capable of running the country. And therefore, the age issue, I believe, might have been something that perhaps, he might have thought about, knowing our country. Perhaps we have the evidence out there that people like Ronald Reagan and the rest went well beyond 70, even old Mandela and the rest in South Africa. But Ghana is another country altogether. And the whole idea of trying to tout ages, to say that, look, are you not tired? Why don't you want to give it up to some young persons to also try, their luck at it and all that, may come up. But he says that after all that, he's looked at the psychological aspects as well, the intellectual aspects. Am I still capable, or is somebody going to tell me that I'm suffering from Parkinson's disease? Or I'm beginning to forget, dotage and things like that. But I've looked at all that, and I think that I have what it takes, and therefore he wants to run. So, well, so be it. Let's see how the primaries will go.
I ask about lessons that he may have learned or not learned. We'll return to look at that more critically, and I'll tell you what Arthur Kennedy also has to say about the lessons that he claims have been learned, that he doubts he has learned them. But, Doc, certainly the Nana says that there is such a unanimous, decision when it comes to those who are urging him to come back, and they include people who are not within the party. And that is where I say that the governing party, and this certainly is a government in opposition, so to speak, they certainly should, like Toniedu says, be a wake-up call to the president.
Well, Samson, I think that even before I go to the substantive question, a point was made earlier by Senior Kwekubako that I wanted to respond to. He made an allusion to the fact that Mr. Akufo-Addo was not imposing himself,
Right.
which I agree. Legally, he is not, but psychologically, it is very clear that there has been a well-orchestrated plan to impose him as the de facto leader of the MPP. And this is perhaps why you are beginning to hear pushback from others even within the party who feel that perhaps he is taking undue advantage to, quote-unquote, get a head start. So we shouldn't underrate, the psychological imposition.
And that's the potential of dividing the party.
Most clearly, I mean, the commentaries have already started coming in.
You are excited to get that, right?
Well, that is what you get. And that is what you get if you, cause your party
I'm saying you are happy to face a divided opposition.
Of course, whatever is going to happen in their camp, which is going to inure to our benefit, particularly when it is not by our doing, but by the desire of somebody who has the burning fire in his belly and a desire to lead the country, then you cannot expect his opponents to have anything against that. But I think that it is very obvious that when you look at the context, the circumstances, the posturing, Mr. Akufo-Addo comes across as exuding a sense of entitlement, truly. And I think that this argument is going to be borne out by some of the critical commentaries that are already coming from his own camp. And we shouldn't underrate how that in itself is actually going to defeat his own call for a united front within his party. But be as it may, I'll put that aside. Now, your substantive question was about how his decision to contest his party's primaries can be used as a basis to call on President Mohammed's government to be up and doing. Well, simply, the government has been up and doing. Is it perfect? No. Is there any perfect organization, institution in the world? Certainly not. Is the president, his team, aware of the challenges that the people face and how they should work to address them, on the basis of which we know very clearly that President Mahama is going to be retained in 2016? Yes. If you look at the State of the Nation's address, almost every single policy proposal that perhaps could have been attributed to Mr. Akufo-Addo in the lead up to the 2012 election has been expanded and giving specific timelines about how we are going to achieve those. I mean, the free senior high school that the MPP likes to claim, which is actually something that the Constitution mandates and is reflected in the NDC's manifesto, of which I have a copy, is one that is already moving. I mean, the president has announced the construction of 50 new senior day high schools and another 50 before the end of the year. He's also expanding access. He's looking at improving on teacher training and redistributing teachers. So technically, it is going to be very difficult to see how Mr. Akufo-Addo, all things being equal, is going to be able to actually maintain the votes that he garnered even in the 2012 election. We are actually expecting a very big blowout if he's fortunate to become the candidate for the MPP. So yes, Toniedu is right. He has the independence of mind to also express his opinions. But the fact is that government is fully aware of his commitments and is working to achieve those, even as we try to deal with very challenging circumstances, many of which I'm sure we'll be touching on as we go along.
Ademalik, I read you a quote from Dr. Arthur Kennedy, who belongs to the NPP and is no mean member, on the issue of whether or not Akufo-Addo has learned his lessons. And he says, quote, "I am not convinced that Akufo-Addo has learned his lessons. I believe that as far as the party's interest is concerned, we need to be very careful about taking back into the fray the same candidate who has lost elections twice for us.
What does that mean? He's not convinced that Akufo-Addo has learned his lessons. I'm told he's even say he didn't exactly say that, and that the media misrepresented him by giving a certain twisted headline. So one has to be very cautious, in fact, interrogating him. But you've done a quote, so I'll proceed again cautiously on basis of the quote. How do you get convinced that somebody has accepted his mistakes or learned from his mistakes? You belong to the same political party. I think the party, a big one like that, would have done post-election, analysis as a way forward into the next election. I think every political party does that. They did so, I believe, for 2008, and Mr. Ayeku will be in a better position to actually articulate this point. And I'm sure, in spite of what happened in court, the party as a party will definitely do some post-mortem relative to election 2012. And so it is not just the individual candidate who ought to do a certain review of his own self and what he said or did not say, or what he did or did not do. The party as a corporate entity would as well do same. And that's how you learn the lessons of history and cure whatever mischief that you may have self-inflicted or perpetrated. So really, I'm not too sure whether the public domain is the appropriate platform to seek to cure that mischief, if indeed that mischief exists. I am not too sure. How are you going to get an answer to that effect? So Akufo-Addo comes out there, oh yes, I'm sorry, these are the things I did wrong, these are the things I said wrong, so these are the lessons I've learned. For what purpose? No, the party ought to take another strategy in curing whatever mischief they think exists relative to that. I don't know if I've answered you, but my brother made a certain point about the self-imposition. He was trying to, if somebody who was a byproduct or a product of a Asiedu declaration did not have a sense of entitlement, self-entitlement, why do you think somebody who's never had that but gone through primaries competitively would have that sense of entitlement? I think that this is just part of the propaganda mischief, and the earlier we bury it, the better for all of us.
You don't know, just a quick point. You see, I said that within the context of what Kweku himself said, which was to catalogue the achievements of Mr. Akufo-Addo over the years, which he himself said was obvious. So if it is obvious and everyone knows that, what is the point of telling us that you've been that, you've been that, you've been that, you've been that, if not because you feel that because of all of this, you are entitled to be president?
We all knew, what candidate Mahama had done. Good ones. We all knew it, but you consolidated them into a package to sell. It's done all the time. What's wrong with that? That does not mean you are imposing yourself on anybody. After all, as I said, within the party, there's competition. Outside the party, there's competition. So why are we worried?
A quick comment. The statement that you read out, I don't understand it to mean that Nana Akufo-Addo hadn't learned lessons. Rather, what I understand him to be saying is that the MPP is taking somebody who had lost twice again. That's what he's saying.
And he said you ought to be careful about that.
No, but why is he talking about mistakes for Nana? He has not pointed out what mistakes he has committed for which he thinks he is going to repeat. And his complaint is more on the party.
It's pointed out in a book, in a whole book.
Oh, we've all read the book. And the man has not even won the primaries yet. We don't know what the manifesto is going to be.
That's right.
We don't know the kind of strategies and tactics he intends to adopt this time round. So how do you start complaining? But I'm saying that the statement does not refer to him. Right. It seems to be referring rather to the party. If the party
be careful. I have heard him speak, Dr. Arthur Kennedy speak, and he actually mentioned that, for example, he would have wished that Nana apologized publicly for quote-unquote the all that die statement. He actually listed a few of them.
I was actually, when Kweku just finished what I said, I was going to ask him that there is a certain linkage to this statement that he made. He said I have made mistakes in my life. I have said things I could, on hindsight, have put better.
Yes.
Yes.
Some say this is an admission now that the all die be die statement was in bad taste.
First of all, I think we should be very clear. We don't have the specifics from the man himself. We don't. So we are doing speculation in order to identify some specifics for the purposes of our analysis. Granted, we've accepted the all die be die thing. Let's get the history right. First of all, the all die be die thing was not said in public. We all know that. It was done in private with party people. And somehow it was recorded and leaked into the public domain. Now there was a debate that went related to that debate. A rationalization was put out there. He himself took part in the rationalization. The impression that was created was that this is a man of violence, and that this man, if he lost an election, will create chaos in this country. That's what it was. And the campaign trail, our friends and brothers and sisters in the NDC actually pursued that line. Now what happened? Bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, come the end of the election, what was the conduct of Akufo-Addo and his party? Did they go out there in the streets and in the bush?
They tried.
No. Those who tried, those rank and file, were pulled off the streets by the leadership. We all know that for a fact. When some assault was perpetrated against journalists, the leadership came to formally apologize. Am I right?
That's right.
So leadership responsibility was clear, that they didn't take responsibility for what had happened out there, and rather took the people off the street and went to the court of law. When the court of law ruled against them, they said, we disagree, but we accept. And it was not a pain to Ghana, as James put it. It was a plus to Ghana. It showed that we can use the law, the court of law, to litigate election disputes. And even if the results are not favorable, we will proceed and build a nation on those lines. All die be die was murdered and buried by the conduct of the NPP post-election and post-election verdict at the Supreme Court, because the distortion, and I mean the distortion, the bastardization of all die be die was murdered and buried by the conduct, the excellent dignified conduct.
Murder is a criminal offense.
I hear you. Then give me a better word.
Now it was abandoned.
It was. Oh, come on.
Well, Mr. Ekotu, now there are those within the party also. Dr. Park appears to have spoken for that section when he said this particular announcement is seeking, I don't know whether to, shall I say, emasculate or sort of put fear in any other person who is interested in contesting the NPP flag bearership, seeking to shut them. We know for a fact that Dr. Apraku is interested, Kofi Konodo Apraku is interested. Well, Alan Sharmanting, I don't know of any public announcements yet, but he certainly may contest. What do you say about those criticisms, that this is not good because, you know, it doesn't help provide a level playground?
I thought you even put it better when you said that if that is what they are looking for, then they would be prepared to rather, you know, fight with a divided opposition. You know, I don't think so. My feeling is this. This was the leader at the time. You know, once you are elected the presidential candidate, you become the leader of the party. Now, a lot of people were looking up to him after the verdict. Most people even felt that we ought to have sought a review, but he said he was not going to seek a review. He then announced publicly that he was leaving the country and was going to reconsider his position in politics. So the man comes back and he says, look, I have done all the thinking. I'm going to hold a press conference to tell you my position. Surely, I mean, this would attract quite a number of sympathizers, you know, those who actually believe that is the best face and the best hope for the party to go there. And in those circumstances, I would not say that it was organized by the party so as to intimidate others. It was organized by him at his residence. It was not a party head office for Dr. Park to suggest that the party is doing this to intimidate others.
It doesn't even matter that party officials were there.
Well, he sent out invitations, and I know in my constituency, those who heard about it, who had not been officially invited, they said, look, we want to go and be party to what was happening. I was caught up in court, very busy. There was no way I could have been there, you know. So in those circumstances, I think all he did was just to tell the people, I've reflected sufficiently, I have come back, and I think when you reopen nominations, I believe I would be ready to contest. I don't think we can put it at the doorstep of the party. But if he's saying that Nana himself did that to intimidate and frighten off the others, perhaps he may have a point there. That is what he thought he wanted to do. And why not? It's a contest. So if I have a way of intimidating you, are you saying I shouldn't? So that would be my comment.
I see. Now, James, you see, the party will deny what we know, that there are factions, so to speak, whether it's positive or negative factions, forget about that, that there are factions as far as the flag bearership race is concerned. And some say, look, this announcement could have been strategic, that it is done about 2 weeks to the party's congress to elect national officers and to seek to bring other people to want to, you know, pitch for candidates who are perceived to want to support and help Nana Addo's cause. How helpful is that to them, if that's the case?
Sammy, I cannot but agree with the assertions made that Nana's declaration was carefully designed and orchestrated by his supporters to cow his opponents and intimidate them as well. There's no question about that. This scheme started long ago, right after the Supreme Court's declaration. We saw how Nana's supporters thronged to his residence from all the regions to demand that Nana should go unopposed. Now, when this happened, one would have expected that the party structure would have risen to the occasion with some sense of objectivity to denounce the actions of those who thronged to Nana's residence to proclaim him as somebody who had some birthright to lead that party and eventually become president in this country. That never happened. And so there are some well-meaning individuals within the MPP itself who are very uncomfortable with the posturing of Nana Addo and his aides. There's no question about that. One cannot rule out the fact that there are factions within the MPP. That is a historical fact, and I know my senior Ayukwe-Otu would bear me out. They lived through the times when the Buzia Dankwa tradition split into two under the leadership of William Oforiatta, who happens to be an uncle of Nana Addo, and Victor Wusu. Those factions still exist within the New Patriotic Party. Others also have the right to contest. And therefore, one would have expected that as a political party which touts itself as one that is very democratic, they would have taken steps to at least assure the rank and file, the members of the party that, listen, nothing is going to be done to give anybody any undue advantage. But for me, what we saw 2 days ago clearly was designed to give Nana Addo some edge over his competitors. So far, there are some fallouts. Some leading members of the party have started talking. Atani has spoken. Aides to Dr. Preku have spoken. I expect many more to follow suit. But Sami, having said that, I want to go back to Kennedy's assertions that Nana Addo has not learned his lesson.
He says he didn't say that.
Well, I haven't heard him, but there is a news bulletin to that effect.
But I'm telling you, he says he didn't say that. He was
Well,
misrepresented.
well, assuming that Atani Kennedy didn't even say that, I would take up the mantle,
Thank you.
stand in his shoes, and say that Nana Addo has not learned from his mistakes.
So that's you saying so.
And let me justify why I say he hasn't learned from his mistakes. You see, Atani Kennedy is alleged to have said, since Kweku Baku thinks that Atani Kennedy may have put in a disclaimer, I would say that, well, assuming what is alleged to have been said by Atani Kennedy is anything to go by, I have some empirical evidence to justify those statements. Look, as far back as 1998, I was then a student at the University of Ghana, and Akufo-Addo did something that I admired a lot at the time. You see, he had just lost to President Kufuor in the Sunyani primaries, and there were rumors that made the rounds at the time that Nana Addo was going to split from the party and form his own party like his uncle did in '79. And Akufo-Addo came to Akwafu Hall to address students of Legon. I remember quite well, somebody asked him a question, whether he actually intended to break away from the NPP. And Akufo-Addo was very emphatic that he had no intentions whatsoever of leaving the NPP. He was going to stay within the NPP, help it grow, and all that. Now, certain statements were made by Nana Addo in the last campaign. The infamous all die be die statement stands in his name. It is a tack that Akufo-Addo must purge himself off. Kweku Baku has tried to do some rationalization. He thinks that by certain acts of the party itself, Nana Addo should be deemed to have purged himself of that negative tag. I don't think so. In '98, when Akufo-Addo was pushed to the wall, he came out openly and denounced those rumors which were supposed to have emanated from his camp, and said emphatically that he was not going to break away. If Nana Addo has learnt his lessons, let him come out openly and make a statement denouncing the infamous all die be die statement. Not until that is done. He is still tagged. He must purge himself. And so these are mistakes that one would expect that Akufo-Addo would not repeat. He had every opportunity to have raised the issue when he made his declaration. He didn't. In addition to that...
Is it not taking it too far, Dr. Park, when you have a man who has demonstrated by his conduct that what you are saying cannot be true of me? We know that we got to a very critical point in our political life. And you have talked about how business was affected, how, investors, potential investors were hedging and waiting to see what would happen before they come to this country. And we are aware that there are investors who a day after the declaration made phone calls, began to start their, projects to come into this country. So what he's saying cannot be used, that Akufo-Addo should come forward and publicly denounce that statement before he could be seen to have been purged of that particular state, even though he himself didn't see that the manner in which it was interpreted was right.
Well, Samson, I think that the arguments that James has professed, or the argument that he has put forward, is one that cannot be dismissed. Because we are not just dealing about physicality, we are also dealing about psychology and emotions and perceptions. And that also allows us to conjecture and to make projections. So if you have made a pronouncement which by and large was legitimately and properly used as a campaign tool against you, and you are again trying to offer yourself as a candidate hoping to enter the same contest, is it not fair and proper, and rather to demonstrate your honesty from the saying that goes, the horse's own mouth, by coming out to withdraw that statement and to apologize for it.
Do I get the impression that the NDC doesn't have any other thing against Akufo-Addo apart from this, statement and the manner in which you interpret it?
Well, if that is your interpretation, well and good. But I think that it is part of his record. And as far as he does not come out publicly to retract it and apologize, you cannot blame me or other NDC sympathizers of believing that the tag is long. And indeed, it's not just me or it's not just James. After Kennedy has said that, and there are many others who are going to raise that issue. So whilst Senator Kwekubaku can believe that it is dead and buried.
After he accepted the Supreme Court judgment, do you remember the acclaim, the tons of praise that he received beyond the party?
Do you really think that what he was saying, he wasn't compelled by circumstances to say? I mean, haven't you heard his very ardent supporters, even including the current General Secretary of his party, still making allusions to the fact that they were cheated even at the Supreme Court? Look, let's be realistic. When you are pushed to the wall, you always look for the easiest option out. What else could he have done? Because the good people of Ghana, quite clearly, would not have been hoodwinked into what was perceived as an effort to make this country ungovernable. But the point is that...
What do you say to a critic who tells you that what you are saying now represents a refusal to elevate our politics beyond propaganda?
But he's the one who should make the move by making the public pronouncement so that we can move on. He's refusing to do it. And what that means is that that mantra may still play again. Who knows whether he will not use it yet again in the upcoming 2016 election if he's selected as the candidate for his party.
Who wants to say something briefly, and then I'll take your messages that you have been sending.
It was fantastic. Said he's refusing to elevate this whole thing out of the realm of propaganda.
What prevents him from saying that I regret, I withdraw?
Our friends are very quick, calling on us to praise ex-President Rawlings or President Rawlings for the fact that he exited, unlike other African heads of states who decided to sit tight in spite of election outcomes and things. They are quick to ask us. He had 2 terms after all those times and exited, and they are quick to say that's a good example. It shows Ghana is doing well democratically, but they are refusing to accept that Akufo-Addo saying that, look, I accept but I disagree, and that whole distorted interpretation of all die be die, which meant that the man was a man of violence, did not occur, that his conduct and action has buried that propaganda. They are refusing to accept.
Maybe he's postponed it.
2, you see, the point about the declarations, the premature declaration, I think everybody knows my stand. All those things that John and the regional executives and things were trooping to Nana's house before he left, I thought was condemnable. It didn't make sense to me. And I said so publicly. Okay? Because indeed, he himself didn't need those things. They were, for me, superfluous. But it had the potential to divide the party or to disparate people in the party. So I condemn it. I think it's improper. I'm told some are even asking, oh, let him go on opposed and all. It doesn't make sense. Those calls are unnecessary. Indeed, it's a disservice to Akufo-Addo, in my candid opinion. But again, a certain element of hypocrisy. Our friends, I remember when Mrs. Rawlings decided to contest President Mills. I remember a bunch of, sorry, that's not a complimentary way of doing it, NDC regional chairman coming together to say that no way, we endorse this incumbent president. And when some people raised an issue, our friends said, no, there's nothing wrong with that. You see, there's too much hypocrisy driving our political discourse.
And the propaganda that sometimes we talk about, the man has not even won primaries. And we are already talking about this so-called all die be die, as if that is the only thing they have against him for running. I mean, I think they should just put quietus to it, because the evidence is clear that if he wanted to make the country ungovernable, he would not have chosen to go to the Supreme Court.
If he won the primaries, would you look forward to him doing what they are asking for?
I don't think it's necessary at all. Kweku has put it in perspective. We all speak our minds.
So you want to silence your critics?
No.
Your opponent says, if you don't do this, we'll continue to hold this against you.
He's created a distortion and inviting us to
that is the
deal with
point.
a distortion.
I don't think it's fair. If you are trying to empower your agents to do that which is right, regardless even of their lives, in-house, you know, and then, you see, all politicians now are in danger because of the advent of cell phones. People are recording
everywhere.
Everywhere, whether, you know, and it is most unfortunate that we're now going to have a situation where you have to decree that don't bring any phone into this room before we have a discussion. Because it's most unfortunate. You cannot talk in private. There are things that are not meant for public consumption, and therefore they ought to be said within.
Should it matter at all that this was meant for private? Because it should be what we see of you in the public should be a manifestation of what you represent.
No.
So if in private you can you know, conspire to do wrong things.
What you do in your bedroom, nobody knows.
Okay, you're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. Is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN. Welcome to the new world. Lipton tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Star Assurance, that is your solid partner. And Arata Motors, that is where you get the best vehicles for the lowest prices. And our newest partner is the Sasso. We say kum ntuntum preko. Now, Frank says, good morning, Samson. I am happy, but at the same time disappointed in Nane's decision to leave the NPP 2016 with his age. Ibrahim Kopa sends this from Tamale. He says, I have now come to the realization that even if Nana-Addo should enter the mosque and say Allahu Akbar, the NDC will still see something wrong about that. Is it wrong to declare an intention? That's a question. Spike sends this from Ohio in the United States of America. It says, Nana-Addo's desire to contest the 2016 NPP flag bearership, the flag bearership is not 2016, it's a bother to some of us. For heaven's sake, at 70 now and 72 in 2016, in my candid opinion, Nana-Addo should have taken a backstage. Give the youth a chance to show what they have. Frimpong Manson sends this from Prestia, says, Nana-Addo's intention to run again is nothing the NDC should worry about, but rather concentrate on how to rule the country as former President Akufo-Addo did. Tom Imboga writes, NDC should give us a break. Mugabe is over 80, but even the Western world fear him. If age is really something to go by, then we should go remove all our traditional leaders who are overaged and yet still governing us with better leadership. Kofi in Nkwanta says, why is the NDC so obsessed with Nana-Addo's intention to run on the ticket of the NPP again? With the same energy and concern, they should solve our ubiquitous Dumso, and water problems. And those are your messages. Keep them coming in. 1422 is a text line, and you can also send it directly to newsfile@myjoyonline.com or post them on our Facebook wall. We'll take a quick break here. We'll come back to wrap up on the Nana-Addo and his intentions, and I have questions, and I'm going to be curious about what happens to the man he praises as being lucky to run with this brilliant economist. What happens to him in 2016? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, and it's brought to you by MTN. Welcome to the new world. And for the first time in Ghana, you choose how much you pay for the calls that you make and the data that you need. Hook up with anyone in the biggest family for 4 pesos, 3 pesos, 2 pesos, or even 1 pesos per minute. That's right. Use your phone one Peswa style. Plus, each option comes with amazing internet and IDD discounts. Even calls to other networks are discounted. Abing Wahankasa. Now, with Ghana Cedis, 2 Ghana Cedis daily subscription, you pay a cool 1 Peswa for your calls. So dial *315# now to choose the offer that suits you. Enjoy daily subscriptions from as low as 50 Ghana pesos. So go on, start enjoying long conversations and long hours of browsing non-stop only on MTN Abeng Waha. Visit your Facebook and Twitter pages, their Facebook and Twitter pages, to participate in their daily Abeng Waha competitions. Welcome to the new world. MTN everywhere you go. And I start this very final round with Abdul Malik Kukubaku Jr. Now, certainly, if Nana won the flag bearership, age will be used against him. And some say, fine opportunity. You describe Dr. Baumia as a brilliant economist, and you are lucky to have him running with you. Maybe should have, sat in the background, coached him, pushed him, and let him take the job. If you take it again now, are you going to make him your running mate again for the 3rd time?
Well, that you are inviting me into the realm of speculation relative to who would run with him. Even though if you asked me for my preference, I would say you should stick to that ticket. But that's just Kukubaku expressing his own preference. But the point about age, I think earlier on, I said those who put it out there will be marketing an absurdity. If they think it's a serious issue, I challenge them to bring it forward for possible legislation, and then they will see the absurdity in what they are doing. You see, but one of the text messages raised it about the 70-72. Let those youthful guys and elements in the NPP who are worried about the age of Nana Akufo-Addo galvanize themselves, mobilize their resources, and give him a stiff competition before the 140,000 plus delegates. Convince the delegates of the party that, look, this man will be 72 years 2016, so even if he won the primaries, it will not be in our interest. Let the youth come forward and compete with the old man, if they call him so, and win. This, they have no luxury of an alternative. This is competition. This is democracy.
Dr. Pak, certainly you use age in the last elections. It will still be to your advantage to use it, right?
Well, I think that in as much as we can say that there is no law that provides an upper limit in terms of one's age as a prerequisite to stand or offer yourself to lead our nation, there are forces of nature which sometimes may compel you to assess yourself, and even with advancements in science and technology and medicine, there will come a time where simply the laws of nature would make it impossible for you to be able to give up your best. And I remember earlier on. Yes,
go and stand under a tree and look up there. You see green leaves down and brown leaves up. Okay? You see brown leaves up there and the green leaves down.
Okay.
I understand that. Of course, there are unforeseen circumstances, but if we are speaking about natural law, we are looking at nature. Given my background, the constant competition between nature and culture. At the end of the day, nature always wins. What that means is that you simply cannot compare the natural energy levels of a 70-year-old to a 57-year-old. It's simply impossible. There will be some task that you cannot perform simply because you become weak. Sometimes it may even affect your motor skills. You can develop dementia. You can develop Alzheimer's.
Right.
And these are practical realities that come with age.
You'll be running a one-man show.
The NPP's former national youth organizer, Cabo, says that I prefer an intelligent old president to a young, incompetent one. So we should look at competence and not age?
Bottom line.
Well, there are old people who are intelligent. There are also old people who are incompetent, much as there are young people who are also intelligent and young people who are incompetent. So it's a matter of preference and the responsibilities that the person is performing. It is also subjective because, I mean, who is to pass that judgment? So I understand that. That is his preference. But I can understand why he has become very vocal. Obviously, he has an interest in the running mate. So, you know, you can see that it's part of the game plan to speak up very boldly in support of Nana's intention to offer himself so as to give his candidate, Mr. Dr. Baumia, an opportunity to get a second call-up.
This is
or should I say a third call-up?
There are those who suggest from you. There are those who suggest that if you look around, the current leaders around the continent and around the globe, the majority now, presently, are turning out to be younger people rather than those who are in their 70s, and so we shouldn't do otherwise.
Well, we are looking at party democracy in which people offer themselves for elections. It's not a matter of appointment or selection, if you like. So if you are 80 years and you feel strong enough, having examined yourself, that you can do the job and you offer yourself and the people vote for you, I think that there's really nothing wrong about it. As Dr. Park rightly put it, there's no age limitation. And Nana himself realized that when he said that he chose two professions, politics and law, where we do not have any retiring age. You know, so
haven't you gone to court and feel pathetic for a lawyer who ought to be sleeping, relaxing somewhere, and is still trying to practice, practically struggling, you know, to put his sentences together just to make, you know, maybe 1,000 cedis?
You know, but nobody would tell a lawyer who is weak to stop coming. We all know that when the lawyer becomes that weak, he stops. But when he's so strong, and like people like Nelson Kofi, after 80 years, can still move about, you know, Nate Olaga, you know, and the rest. And then you can also see those who begin to, you know, dwindle with age, you know. So when nature, you know, affects you, you should be able to say so. But when you feel strong in your belly that you can do it, I don't think that anything should stop us. And you have a situation in this country where you've had Nana Addo, who's done it once, he's done it twice, and the question I remember saying is he going to be third time lucky? You know, and in Ghana we say, Sheta ya wonshe. You know, if you want to check something, you do it 3 times. You know, and we saw President Atani himself.
President Atani had you know, appreciating, you know, outcomes. Nana Addo's appears to be on the other way around. He actually has.
Well, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't really matter. Every year, every election year, and what the dynamics are. I was talking to a sister radio station. I was asking. We knew fishermen would go to bring fish. You know, they go on fishing expedition to bring fish. This is the time when fishermen cast their net and bring cow. They bring cow. So if you look at it, so these dynamics, you know, could easily affect the fortunes of the NDC.
And briefly, you know, briefly in a minute, if he won, he should go with Baumia again?
Well, I guess that is what he wants to do. He's already been going around with him. I would not be surprised that if he settles on him, because 2012...
I'm asking your opinion.
No, 2012...
What would be your advice if you won?
So many names came up. My own name came up. At the end of the day, he decided to settle with him. And I do not think that he will change his mind. He will still go with Baumia.
That one I didn't.
Well, the writing is on the wall. It's very obvious. Even the way that he spoke about him in his speech, it's very clear that he's going to go with him.
James?
I am very clear in my mind. Let's not play ostrich on this matter. At a certain age, it's natural. It's natural law. you begin to lose your strength and energy, particularly at 70. It's for good reason that even at the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, the retirement age is fixed at 70. Nana has said that, well, fortunately for
Would
him...
you dispute that J.H. Mensah was one of our best hands in Parliament?
He may have been, but age caught up with him. And graciously, J.H. Mensah, he didn't lose the Sujani East seat. He relinquished the seat voluntarily because at some point he realized that his health was beginning to fail him. So,
that his health was
of course,
to fail him.
and so
Akufo-Addo has not suffered that. So what are we talking about here?
So, Sami, the point I'm making is that we cannot run away from the fact that with old age, you are exposed to certain health-related
One of the
problems.
best democracies in the world, America. Did you watch John McCain's campaign?
Well, I watched John McCain, but the American people rejected John McCain partly because
not because of age.
well, but we can't use John McCain as a good example because he didn't win that election.
Reagan?
He didn't win that election.
President work alone.
Well, you see, Reagan may have a certain history. But the point I'm making is that the general principle is that at a certain age, you begin to lose your strength and energy. My brother has mentioned the number of ailments that one can be exposed to. Dementia, you can have depression, arthritis. These are diseases which come about as a result of old age.
And it happens to every old person.
Kweku has made the point, which is valid.
Somebody gave an otherwise very bad example of
I'm
Mugabe.
about to give you
Mugabe.
Well, Mugabe
After 80.
after 80, we all know the
he's frail.
circumstances,
You know
history.
he's frail. You know he's weak.
He was in
But
power
Mugabe was
80.
in power before he
It doesn't
turned
matter.
No, I'm
He
asking
was-
you,
he's
at
not
80,
Can you rule or
is it what you
cannot
know,
rule?
that
That's
he's
the
weak
bottom
or he's
line.
frail?
Well, Sami, the rule is not absolute.
He's a strong man.
I am speaking in general terms.
Thank you.
It's not absolute. We have to
Fantastic.
concede to that point.
Fantastic.
But Sami, let me make a
Fantastic
statement
point.
on
finish
Dr.
up.
Bawumia.
Yeah, Bawumia. Yeah.
Yes. If Nanado settles on Dr. Bawumia, we'll be very glad. Because I don't see what advantages Dr. Bawumia brings along. The two paired in
The last two elections.
and suffered defeats.
He
And so
won
if
more votes in the north.
Nana settles on Bawumia, we'll be very happy.
He won more votes
Okay.
in the north.
I don't see
Thank
what
you.
election.
Thank you.
You have some Kotoko are going to play and you are telling Kotoko what you are going to do.
I think American Supreme Court judges have no age limitation.
Right.
They don't have. And Americans should know better.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Your text messages are still welcome. 1422, that's the text line. Also, the multi-TV text line is 1760. 1760. Send your messages to any of these lines and we will share them with the rest of the world. And as I tell you, we are staying vitalized and energetic by kind courtesy of Lipton Tea, and you are invited on the journey of refreshment and vitality. The world's favorite hot tea brand will give you the needed level of alertness to start your day. So take another look at your day and begin with a cup of Lipton for natural refreshment in mind and body. Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. And Star Assurance, as always, wants to remind you that their commitment is unwavering and they are committed to giving you cutting-edge insurance policies that give you peace of mind and power to achieve your set goals. They work to protect your properties and businesses when the unexpected happens. They have branches all over the country and they want to get into a lifetime partnership with you. So pick your phone and call Star Assurance on 0302 240 632 or visit www.starassurance.com. Star Assurance, that's your solid partner. And if you're looking for the best deal in brand new or slightly used vehicles, believe me, Errata Motors is the place to go. Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Infiniti, Range Rover, name them. Get to the Erata Motors at Lagos Avenue opposite Body Talk near GT Bank East Legon, or call them on 0244 445 268. That's 024 445 268 or 0277 486 800. Erata Motors, we say that's where you get the best vehicles for the lowest prices. And Sasso kum intuntum preko. Now we go to the, I say, very serious matter that I want you to take it very lightly. I say we now go to the Republic of the University of Ghana. And I'm asking why people are angry, and I'm telling them the truth that from what I have seen, you really don't need an immigration lawyer to secure you a visa to make a transit at Legon. Not at all. The Legon matters have come up. They have been asked by government to explain what is going on. Parliament also sought to make an intervention to suggest that it looks like they need to amend the statute that set up Legon so that they can clip some of its wings away to avoid what is going on presently. You know about the new road that they have done, repaired, or whatever you want to call it, and after that they sought to take tolls. That was stopped, and government decided that it would take up that bill. We also know of the story of the Dawn, what I call the unilateral impunity of the security at that place in destroying their toll booth. And now parents who have their children in the school, the primary or the other schools at the university, and also guardians who have their wards there, are unable to access in the manner they want. Students are complaining and their visitors are also complaining. The university says this is not exactly the way you are putting it. Let's take a listen to this briefly and we'll get to that issue.
If someone is a student, he still has to get a sticker. If someone is an alumni, he has to get a sticker. Meanwhile, the law clearly states who is a member, who is entitled to the privileges, and who can have access to the place. Yet, Mr. Speaker, even now as we sit, a member of parliament cannot have access, even though these are his constituents, these are people who voted for him or her, yet the person cannot have access to the university by virtue of this no sticker, no entry. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very important issue. Let's not treat it with kid gloves. If we are not careful, other institutions, not only universities, will begin to raise issues of this nature, and if we are not careful, our country will be plugged into silos.
All right, that's the question Mr. Akufo-Addo was asking. Is it true they have said no sticker, no entry? We'll get to the details of that. Members of Parliament, you are coming under accusation of you yourselves being ignorant about what exactly is happening within the four walls of Legon and to go in the manner that you decided to go. You were in the House that day, right? What provoked all of this?
Well, what provoked the debate in Parliament was the decision of the University of Ghana to revert to some old rule which was enforced prior to the reconstruction of the routes on campus. Now, that old rule clearly stipulated that motorists who wanted to use some of the entry points, not the main entry point, needed to have university stickers. That was the rule, I mean, prior to reconstruction.
Access.
Yes, so there was restricted access. But the point must be made that the general public could have access through the main entry point. Now, we all know what happened when the university...
You and your colleagues didn't acknowledge that in your statements.
No, it was acknowledged. Several members spoke. The majority whip spoke clearly. He was against the attempt by the university to revert to its old rule. and actually did some analysis about what transpired when the University of Ghana Act, which came into force in 2010, was about to be enacted. Certain issues arose with regards to the power of the university to restrict access to campus, and that some of them raised certain issues, and the point was glossed over. The teaching staff at the time took the position that, look, that particular provision was meant to scare off hooligans from campus. So Honorable Muntaka sought to make the point that some of them foresaw that at some point the university authorities would exploit that provision to the disadvantage of the general public. But Sami, having said that, some other members like Honorable Papu Wusu and Kuma took certain positions with regard to the issue. For me, the point that must be made is that the University of Ghana is an academic institution. And in order to adequately resource the university and equip them to be able to carry out its mandate of learning and teaching in a congenial atmosphere, the university should never be used as a thoroughfare. That is my candid opinion. But I think that it is important to make certain exemptions. Over the period, the university has allowed some of its facilities to be patronized by people who are not members of the university. For instance, we now have parents who are not members, they are not part of the faculty at the university, they are not students, but they have their wards at the university primary. Those people clearly ought to be exempted from the rule. Quite apart from that, the impression is being made that it is general access which has been restricted. That is not true.
The university says
has
that,
its main entrance.
The university says that you have these impatient parents who didn't wait to see what the real process was. That it wasn't the case that they were denied, and that there were shuttle, that was supposed to be available to convey their children into the school, but they just wouldn't understand the situation. They won't wait for explanations and got the confusion, and they decided now to block the road at the point and causing all the confusion that got the public attention.
Did the university communicate some of these policies to the parents?
They said they communicated. They even paid television advertisements about it. They did on GTV. They ran a documentary to let you know what was going to happen.
Well, but you see, Sami, I think that all these problems have actually been created by the university itself. In as much as I think the university shouldn't be a thoroughfare, I think that the university itself has not been consistent with its, policy decisions over the period. You see, at some point, the university completely forgot about the fact that the university is an academic institution, and that for effective learning and teaching, you don't need, to have nuisance on campus. You don't need to have the university as a thoroughfare. But they glossed over all these factors.
Did they
and
gloss
went
over
ahead.
it? What do you mean by gloss over? When the Ministry of Roads, pleaded with them to allow the creation of that particular, alternative road during the construction of the Achimota road.
No,
so
that is not the point I'm making. The point I'm trying to make is that
these are some of the reasons that you had traffic piling up on the university campus.
No, the point I'm trying to make is that at some point it was okay for the university to give an unrestricted access to the public once the members of the public were prepared to part with some 1 cedi or 50 pesos. They forgot about the fact that the university itself is an academic institution.
I see.
Then subsequently, when the government decided to absorb the money they had spent on the reconstruction of the roads, they quickly decided to revert to the old rule. And so that level of inconsistency on the part of the university itself may have created the problem.
Well,
but
the explanation is that that also was part of the measures to cut down the traffic on campus. Mr. Aikoto, what is wrong with a university deciding that you have as many as 16,000 vehicles using its campus as a thoroughfare on a daily basis. What is wrong with them seeking to stop that?
Well, I've looked at the law setting up the university as amended, and when we look at the powers of the University Council, section 16(1) and 2, it provides that subject to the provisions of this act, the University Council shall have power to do or provide for any act or thing in relation to the university which the council considers necessary or expedient in its capacity as the governing body of the university. And 2, the conferment of particular powers on the University Council by other provisions of this act shall not be taken to limit the generality of this section. So if the university in its wisdom, that is the University Council, not the Vice Chancellor, and I think sometimes that is where some people make a mistake and decide to heap abuses on him. It is not he who is taking a decision, it's the council which has power under the law to look at things which might act detrimentally or whatever to the university. And to me, once the power is there and it has been exercised, I don't have anything against it. Again, the fact that they said you can use the Okponglo end in and out, and that is open 24 hours or so, that is also something to show that there's no complete or strict restriction. I have not heard this idea of no sticker, no entry. I don't know whether they've said so, but I think what the
no sticker, no entry for the 2 other points,
exactly,
which are preferred entrances and exits for motorists.
Exactly, but that is where they have said that you have to go through a certain procedure, then you can get the sticker, and then you can use it. So overall, I think it's not the best, to have. Even University of Ghana, they've been slightly lucky. When we were there, the few problems we were having were rather from those living in the university villages who were coming to help us sometimes with cleaning. And I quite remember in those days, a very expensive stiletto shoes my mother bought for me, and I prided it so much. It just vanished. It vanished from and it paid me a lot, But if you went out to K and U,
and they say some of this explain why they created the GIMPA, part of the entrance or exit, because they needed their workers to come through easily and not to go through all the way through that trouble to come into the university.
Exactly, so I'm saying that if you look at what happened to the Nigerian students, on the tech campus, where the guy was just murdered, and we have a few of those. My daughter was there, she used to report to me some of the problems they were having with criminals. Then there is the need, and the university would then have a responsibility to protect those people inside there. So if, for instance, somebody has a child at the university primary, for which reason he should have access to take the child in and out, that cannot be denied. Otherwise, you are making it impossible for the children to go to school.
It sounds as if, the suggestion is that the university may be doing a right thing. But from where you sit, does it appear as if they may have failed in communicating properly what ought to have been done? Processes of consultation. And I've heard the PR unit seeking to blame the media, and I think, that's certainly not fair if they have failed in their job, because why would a parent who is taking the child to the school get to the point and suddenly want to make problem? Why are they, what is it?
Samson, this is a very delicate topic for me to discuss for obvious reasons. As you are fully aware, I'm a member of the university community. I am only on leave by virtue of having been called to serve my nation. And so I know the circumstances and the conditions. But be as it may, I think that we can't run away from having an honest discussion about issues that quite clearly have implications for the functionality of the university as an academic institution, but also impact on what I would describe as stakeholders. I think that the intent of the University of Ghana, even if you look at the original issue with regards to fixing the roads, was one that must be appreciated, because those of us who frequent campus then and now, quite clearly, there's been a remarkable improvement in terms of the road network. Now, the effort to try and retrieve the resources that were used to fix the roads were not
8 million
designed the way that others thought should have been the case. But the good news is that government has stepped in, and that part of the issue has been resolved. Now, in terms of the standoff between parents who have the awards in the university primary and university authorities, I thought was very unfortunate. And I believe that if perhaps the university authorities had looked at what I would describe as the most obvious way of communicating this no sticker, no use of these access roads other than the main road could have been averted, I think would have been through the PTA. So, you know, it makes you wonder whether perhaps with hindsight they wouldn't have sort of used the PTA as a vehicle to bring forward and explain properly to the parents that this is why we are introducing this policy, and it is not that we are trying to prevent you from having access to your wards, or that we want you to pay 400 Ghana cedis to get a sticker, which I think some parents also have taken issue with. It has to do with the cost of the sticker. But other than that, the use of stickers, I have a sticker, and although I'm not currently teaching in Legon, I still have access to some of the services that I should enjoy by virtue of being a member of the academic community. So I think you are right. By and large, I think the basic problem in all of this has been a lack of proper communication, or a refusal by interested groups to accept the communication, even if it came to them. And I think that if the PTA had been used in a much more overt way, then it would have made it very difficult for those parents who decided to engage in the standoff to have done what they did. But I think that there are good lessons to be learned from all of these processes, and that it is only in the interest of both the university and those who are beneficiaries of the services that the university has to provide, including the school, will do what is going to be in the best interest that will be congenial for academic work, be it at the primary level, JSS level, or even within the end block context.
Could they say that when they began to implement the user charges, you know, for the roads there, they had managed to reduce the traffic volumes, 16,000 a day. They had managed to reduce it suddenly to about 50%. Now, when government took over and everything was stopped and their wall was also broken, and they reverted to the normal situation, you know, it suddenly jumped up again by about 50%. And they felt that all of this was such a big deal and it wasn't helpful. They are talking about the nuisance that is created, the need for a congenial atmosphere, that there are those who are also questioning the manner in which they have gone about the process. As if when they attempt one and they are stopped, they find a new reason, and they are being inconsistent and illogic in the whole of the process. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah, it's a bit untidy out there, the whole process. And it's not the Legon authorities alone who are blamable for the untidy process. They take quite a fair share of the blame, though. But you see, the latest thing, I think, was affected by the earlier controversies, because there's a fine line of extension between the earlier one, which got suspended, and the second one. Right. But the public mind had already, if you like, been poisoned by the earlier controversy. And so when the parents got there and things didn't work, and then media intervened with huge reports all over the place, Legon looked really bad in terms of, I'm talking of the authorities. And that's where you had attacks like Idi Amin and the rest coming in, a bit unfair to in my candid opinion. But that's not a big deal. I'm sure the Vice Chancellor can live with the attack, you know. So that is where I think the problem, we should tidy up things. There's the need for everybody to be sober. I've tried to understand and appreciate. And I think, to be fair, they have a case. It's how that policy is being managed, and a certain lack of consensus among all the stakeholders. We are too capable. I think we are bigger than what we're seeing in terms of our intellect as a nation, and with Legon as the centerpiece in this whole matter. So people should cease fire. This, you see, the parliament too drove in there some element of emotion. Let's curtail their powers. We shouldn't have given them this much powers. You know, all those things are emotion driven. It doesn't bring solutions, and it creates more chaos. I'm beginning to understand what the Legon people are doing. They ought to have also appreciate the fact that Legon has become bigger than it used to be. The environment around it has changed. Too many commercial and other industrial activities taking place. We have to find a balance. I'm not competent really to give you a solution, but I think we have people who can plan the Legon town, quote unquote, properly within the context of the expanded environment. Okay, it should be done. We are capable of doing it, so they ought to go around it properly. You know, it's beyond my technical competence, but I can see that it's because all the stakeholders have not built consensus on the policy, and especially policy implementation. The untidiness is more within the implementation of an otherwise, you know, well-intentioned policy. That's the way I see it.
Right.
I think there are people who are capable of...
The Ministry of Education had to intervene, and they wrote demanding a report on the situation.
That was part.
Now, they've been giving a very long report.
Yes.
I am thinking, what are your expectations, how the ministry should assist?
Again, that was part of the process of making things untidy. Suddenly, when the ministry realized that the authorities were losing popularity relative to the issues, they were losing public sympathy, you know, and the media created part of the process, because not that media was at fault. Let me clarify. The media gave the parents the channel to communicate their grievances, and so that created a certain storm. Then the ministry intervenes. I thought it was a bit opportunistic in terms of the timing, and to make it worse, the ministry then tells the public, okay, even before they could receive a report from the university authorities, the ministry was out there telling a story. And the fact that according to the University Act, the university authority should have submitted a report. Here was the ministry seeking to be on the good side of the public that was angry with the ministry. That was also untidy. It doesn't help to actually bring, you know, some sobriety to an issue. But all the same, the university has reacted to. I've just realized that a copy was given, but I haven't finished reading.
Okay, it's a very long one.
Yes, very long one, and they are explaining, and that is why I realized that perhaps I also did not have much information, because I have actually attacked the university. I said they are being intransigent and all that, but having read portions of their report, I see that look, there is a case to be made for them. It is how they are also going about their case, and how all others are intervening, everybody seeking to win public sympathy without addressing the substantive issues. You don't solve a problem that way.
Exactly, like Oku is saying, after reading their statement, I feel they are doing now what they ought to have done earlier on, seeking to now protect over 30,000 students on the campus and giving them the serenity that they deserve and everything else. What should be the way forward? How should they go about this whole process? And government's intervention too, how should it be managed?
Well, we are in a democracy, which means that everybody has an opinion. Again, you cannot just allow autocracy to run if that were so. But as I said previously, in their statute, in their acts, the council has power to do things which, in their opinion, would assist the investor, that is, to take decisions in the best interest of the investor. We are only talking about managing information, that perhaps it was not managed well. But I agree with what Kweku has said, that earlier on it was a tolls matter that people kicked against. Government intervened, it was withdrawn. What we are talking about is now the protection of the people.
The tolls matter, that's where people are questioning the inconsistency or illogic in what they are trying to say, that we are trying to manage the numbers. And if you're saying you are taking tolls, then it means it is open to anybody who can pay and use their place. So what's the point?
Well, I agree. The inconsistency that some people have talked about, I agree. But of course, if they said they wanted to recoup their monies, and government says, I'll give you the money, what was the point of insisting on collecting the tolls anyway? That's why they said they left that out. But now, it's a usual thing according to them, which they have done over the years. They are only reinforcing and designating only certain routes that must be used. So if the management
would they have done that if government had not intervened to say, I'm taking up the 8 million Ghana cedis that you say you took?
But don't forget this, that load the vehicles, the increase in traffic again may affect the route.
The roads.
Exactly. The roads.
Yes.
So again, they're finding a way.
Once government says it's going to pay, fine. But I think what is worrying the minds of so many people is that, the investor is bent on making money. Even when government wants to pay, or government has agreed it will absorb, they still want to collect money.
Right.
Forgetting the fact that they have other interests, as they have now tried to explain. So, well, I listened to that conversation with the PRO and the host of your station, and how she tried to explain, So perhaps we take it from there, after we've looked at this explanation, and everybody learns lessons, So perhaps they will learn their lesson and know how to go about it next time. But as for the authority to do what they have, they are doing, I think they have.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. We are coming to you live from Multi-TV Studios in Kokomlemle. This is your Joynews channel. You're on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. And subsequently, this show is available on the ABN television, the Sky channel 290. Is it? Right. We'll take a very final break at this point and return to talk about energy. Dumso is back with us, isn't it? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Your message is still welcome. 1422, and you can also post them to send them to 1760. Those are text lines. I'm going to share some of the messages that you are bringing in with you shortly. Somehow, just too many of you are still interested in the very first topic, the matter of politics, MPP politics, so to speak, with Nana Addo's return. And so most of the text messages are about that. Let us know what you're thinking also about the Legon matter and the energy matter that we are going to discuss now. So please, let's keep it at that. Now, I started my introduction to the energy matter by referring to or quoting a legal maxim, nemo dat quote non habet, which literally means that you don't give what you don't have. If you don't have it, you don't have it, so you don't give it. Does it come to you strange that in this darkest hour, we are going to Nigeria, and I've been in Nigeria, short time, and I've seen how the situation is there. Almost every individual home has a generator, and there's a lot of noise in a lot of the places. And I'm wondering, how does it work? How does Nigeria give what it doesn't appear to have, so to speak? You may call it sensational. So, in the midst of the latest thing that we now know has become reality. The Minister of Energy was dispatched to Nigeria by the president. Some say that is lack of foresight, that is lack of planning. You should have seen it long coming. Only wait until we are plunged into darkness and then you're running around. It doesn't help. But the news he brought home was that the Nigerian government has expressed commitment towards a continuous supply of gas to Ghana to operate her thermal power plants, because that's the major problem. And we are told that after intense negotiations with the Minister for Petroleum of the Republic of Nigeria, officials of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Shell and Chevron, who together form NGAS, and who are the suppliers of the natural gas to Ghana, that's through the West Africa Gas Pipeline project, the Ghanaian team was briefed about the causes of the low levels of gas supply and assured of a constant supply of some 50 MMB, whatever it says, up to 30 or less being supplied in recent times, and that they are committed to supplying the figure that I spoke about, 50. And so this problem should not be with us for too long. Dr. Park.
Yes, Samson.
Yes. How do you react to the criticisms that that's not how you knee-jerk? You have voted into office to solve the problems. You don't wait until the problems, have taken you by your neck and then you start telling us what you are trying to do. You should be doing them.
First of all, I think that it is very important that we put things into perspective. We have a growing population, which also indicates that our current production capacity is constantly chasing our demand for power. We have a president who has committed very boldly to achieve for the nation 5,000 megawatts of power by 2016. He is working to achieve that in the medium to long term, but at the same time he is also actively working to address the issue in the short term. It is true that there is a lot of discomfort, and the president is the first person to admit the negative repercussions of not having adequate and regular power supply. We went through a phase where the issue of erratic power supply gained a lot of currency, to the extent that some, in a very crafty way, tried to suggest that it was perhaps something that could be associated with this president, when indeed that certainly cannot be borne out by the historical evidence. Now, the current situation cannot be said to have come about as a result of government's inability or a lack of foresight in ensuring that we have the adequate power that we need, even if we still do not have the productive capacity to be able to have a reserve. The current situation has been occasioned by three factors. And the president was very bold, honest, to admit this in front of the Western Regional House of Chiefs. I was there with him when he was undertaking the tour of that region. The first reason was the fact that the gas that we get from Nigeria had dropped significantly. And of course, there are a lot of reasons why that is the case, and that was why he sent the Minister for Petroleum and Energy there, which has resulted in some positive outcome. Now, the second reason was the fact that the Taco plant had also suffered some damage, which is currently being fixed, and therefore the megawatts that we get from that, which is about 200 and I believe 110 megawatts, is no longer coming into the system. At the same time, too, the Tico plant is being refurbished to double its generational capacity. Now, whether it is by fate or coincidence, all of these three are happening simultaneously and at the same time. I mean, the president is not a soothsayer, and so this could not have been predicted. So for anyone to suggest that what is happening to us today was something that could have been foreseen and perhaps could have been averted, I think that we are not being fair.
When we were celebrating the Ghana's, progress in expanding electricity everywhere and comparing us to South Africa and saying we're doing the best, you should have been thinking about what else was not going on well, and getting the people to act in good time.
These that I have narrated certainly cannot take away the fact that if you look at the coverage in terms of the population, the 75% and almost above coverage, these challenges temporary, and I want to emphasize, does not take away the fact that we have 75% coverage and we are one of the top in the African continent. But in all of this, we have specific solutions that are going to come aboard with our own gas supply. When that comes on stream, it would not only reduce our dependency on Nigeria, but we are also even looking at other alternative sources of energy. So these are temporary challenges that we must accept, in as much as they are uncomfortable and quite clearly would have negative repercussions on productivity. They are short term, and so we should be looking at the medium to long term in terms of dealing with this problem once and for all. And I think that we must bear with government and the president in these unforeseen circumstances, because nobody would have predicted that. There is no way this president would have wanted this to occur. It simply doesn't make sense. Why would he want that?
I'll read some of the text messages and come to Abdul Malik to tell me what he sees about the situation. There are some who don't want to believe what the energy minister is talking about as to Nigeria going to give us everything. And I'm thinking maybe Abdul Malik should send the Tiger Eye that way, so that they will pull everything and come and bring us feely what exactly is happening. And talking about Tiger Eye, there's a premiere that's coming up, isn't it? I've seen the advertisement about the premiere about this anti-corruption matters that he's been doing, titled Soul Takers. And I'm reading things like, when greed collides with a dark and deadly world, the innocent blood is spilled in Ghana. I'm like, what is in it? What's it about?
The underground world.
I am not entitled to do a disclosure.
But it's your voice. So.
Yes, but I'm not entitled to do a disclosure.
There's an emphatic statement that innocent blood is spilled in Ghana.
Yes.
And it gets me curious.
Yes, we want to maintain the curiosity. Let it happen and people see.
Okay, let me read these messages. Well, this one from Taifa, and he says, she says that this Taifa in Amrahia.
Taifa or Tafa.
Okay, I think it's Tafa. Tafa is saying, from Amrahia, and he says, please, Samson, ask Mr. Eko to be honest and tell us whether he takes to Nana-Addo coming back or not. Okay, he's shared his opinion already. John Afum says, Samson, please, people say NPP is trying to impose Nana-Addo on us. Ask the NDC if they will allow someone to contest John Mahama. Kwejo Ajiman Dia in the UK says, emotions shouldn't override good intentions on the part of Parliament. As an academic institution, Legon should be allowed to operate as the Act stipulates. Kofi says, Samson, I think the decision of the Legon Authority not to allow parents to use their entrance is not the best. Come to KNUST. All residents living around Kote, I know about that, Udiase, all of them use the KNUST campus road. Yet there is no law banning them, and so you want Legon to take a cue. Well, Legon is telling you that it is not correct, that there's an outright ban of access. Park Ganiu sends from Savligo, the university is trying to set a very bad precedent. If all schools should block their roads in the name of academic reasons, how many roads will be left for the public? And what will be the security implication? The University of Ghana is saying, do you want to come to a university where 16,000 vehicles ply every day? Okay, Solomon says, why can't the university allow the use of those gates between some hours of the day without the stickers? Okay, that's a suggestion. Adam says, if ECG is unable to buy crude because of government is unable to release funds timely, then we must be able to unanimously blame TUC for forcefully compelling government to absorb a cost it was not prepared for. I don't get that exactly.
I think it's related to the tariff adjustment.
I see, because they were against it. Right, I see. The question I put to Kweku is, there are those who say, let's not buy this thing from Nigeria says they are going to supply, because look, be frank with the people. The demand that we need is 2,000, and we know that now the shortfall is about 200 or so, and the capacity to supply is only about 1,800. So, and even that is not reliable. Just tell us and give us a long-term plan rather than trying to deceive the public.
Yes, Apak made an interesting point, and it sent my mind way back into history. The point about the president is not a soothsayer. Yes, I remember Achampo saying that that was where we were facing drought, you know, and things. It set my mind back then. But the point you're making, the Nigeria thing, to be honest with you, I feel a bit sad that that project, that whole West Africa gas project, is not working as we anticipated. This is something that has been driven since 1995, and it's 4 countries in the sub-region, and it's part of this whole thing about do more regional cooperation, you know, bring our economies together. Very, very noble vision and project, and it ought to work. What's wrong with Africans? You know, so I have a problem that it is disturbing. I don't have the details in terms of the contractual obligations and whether there have been breaches and things. I don't have the details, but it must work. We must make it work. It's just a complement, a supplement to the other efforts that we may be doing within the country. So the minister's visit, it's true, it's a fact that there was a reduction in the supply from Nigeria. We're having challenges. So if a minister visits at the behest of the president to intervene, and if it would help in a small way, fair deal, I have nothing against that. I would have loved president to president. I'm told there have been those interactions earlier. Whatever it is, whatever will come out of the Nigerian visit, fair deal. We won't throw it away. So I don't think that's it's a useless venture at all. But you made a point about long term, you know, and that's where my worry is. Whilst this West Africa thing is complementary to the other efforts, what is happening to our own gas project that we've made so much noise about? Too many deadlines, too many timelines have been, you know, we fail to meet them, and it leads to a certain sense of despondency and frustration. And it takes me back sometimes to policy shift. Because look, originally, if we had stuck to the original format, we should have had first gas at the time the first oil. I don't know whether you know that. And the former energy minister, Atani, I recall in an interview with David, our old friend David, you know, if you recall, he used to host a series, Time with David. David Ampofo. Yeah. Yes, I have the transcript here where he admitted, you know, that the previous government, this is Atani, David was asking, how is it possible when we understand that these things take 2 to 3 years to complete? He was talking of the gas plant. The minister's answer was that the previous government agreed to fast-track the process. We came, we looked at the whole policy, and we committed ourselves to it. And as I'm talking to you, people who want to manage the gas have submitted their proposals to the GMPC. He was clear in his mind that we will be able to complete that project before first oil. in the last quarter of 2010. Some policy shift occurred because people decided that, look, abandon this original format, let's go chase Chinese money for the project. All those policy shifts affected the timelines. So we are part of the problem. We need to take part of the blame for this, because otherwise, if we had kept to the schedule, I am sure with this problem from the Nigerians, we will still have enough from our own local sources.
Our own gas, now we are talking about June to have it. And people like very, I mean, undisputably very good assets in the industry, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, says this is a husk.
Well, he's an expert. He's an expert, and I know he's a good one at that.
So
if he says that, I'm hoping that he will be wrong. Let me be honest with you. I'm hoping. But if we are talking pure competence, pure technical knowledge, he's one of the best. Not the only one, but he's one of the best. But I'm hoping he will be wrong with a prediction. Because honestly, we want a solution. We don't want the subculture of lamentation, excuses, apologies. It's getting too much.
He says that the money is to even lay the pipelines to Atuabu, the money isn't there.
He knows better than I do when it comes to these areas. I'm not about to challenge him, but I say I hope the June deadline will be met. Otherwise, you see that every time, and this is going to affect people's commitment to that so-called automatic adjustment formula. You know, that philosophy that comes with it, that if we pay more, then we will have efficient service. The more such situations reoccur, people lose faith in that so-called philosophy. And for that matter, it becomes difficult to manage the power sector. You know?
Mr. Nketiah, now government has come public, apologized for, you know, as you don't like the taste of how I put it, but pardon me, I don't have any other way. They have sat down and allowed us to be plunged into darkness. They have apologized for that. But there are those who say the gas pipeline project, that is it. We have a contract. We have a contract that ought to be obeyed. The contract is not being, you know, obeyed strictly. Some say either cancel the contract or insist that the contract is implemented to the dictates.
Well, as far as I know, it is not like a one-country business. It's a multi-treaty which was done along the West Coast. I mean, when I was Attorney General, this thing gave us a lot of headache when it came to preparing the agreement. Some wanted the definitions to come first. We said we are Ghanaians, we always put our interpretation at the end, and it led to a whole lot of fights. But eventually it was done and sent to Parliament, was approved and all that. And I believe Nigeria also assisted Ghana to pay, you know, our portion at the time. So we were able to pay, and, you know, but I don't think it's being managed properly, because very often we hear problems with the seawater and things having gone into the underground pipes, and people doubt whether these things are true. So I wouldn't say that it is not a viable thing. It is. Because if Nigeria is flaring the gas and it is necessary that it is rather brought down to be used for energy and the rest, then why not? You know, they will all have some kind of advantage in improving our energy supply. Except that, you see, sometimes when we take Ghanaians for granted, it leaves much to be desired. It was this president who said Ghanaians have very short memories, and that they have solved the energy crisis. If you do recall, you know, and he doesn't see why we're not talking about that. I think it was one that even Bui, you know, was not running on full capacity. At the time, it was only 2 turbines or so that had been turned on. Later on, the others were also turned on. Is the government telling us, you know, that they are not aware of any population expansion, and that more and more people need energy? I mean, as cabinet, they should always be thinking about it, because energy is not something which you provide once and you think you've solved a problem. We're trying to, you know, connect people to the national grid. And as you rightly pointed out, when we make propaganda of it to say that we have the largest penetration, you know, outside South Africa and all that, as if we are taking credit for the so-called connection to the grid without looking at the effects. If you bring more people onto the grid at a time, which would eventually affect others. Now, people are really suffering. People cannot sleep at night. There's so much, heat around. And for many businesses, I can talk for myself. Lawyers, we have to file things within a certain, there are time limitations. And if your generator set should break down, you're going to have a difficulty. You can't work. The room becomes difficult.
That is for you who has one. Those who don't have a generator set.
Can you imagine? And we, like the sociologists will tell us, we decide to be muddy. Muddy means putting glass windows and doors everywhere. So we've shut out all the fresh air, which could have come in if we were using louvers. But almost every modern house has got this kind of mirrors and glazing. So we can't afford not to, work on generating more energy. We need it. The businessmen are suffering. They're buying so much diesel,
but you are not saying,
Mr.
you are not saying that you are unaware of the very practical moves that government has taken in adding to the power that we have.
You put the question, why did they wait? We brought on only 2 turbines. They were making noise. Now we have solved the problem. Didn't we realize the difficulties that await us? We didn't. As if we were just interested in making propaganda. Now it is caught up with us. It's caught up. I mean, nobody felt when they were talking with that, confidence that they've solved the problem. We have very short memories. They didn't realize it will come back. And it has just come back. They are now sending people running around. Now they are talking about TICO and so and so. We saw all these things. We worked on Bui Dam and the rest. Didn't they use it against us during campaign? That we're not able to solve these difficulties? Why are they asking us to be patient with them? We are suffering in the land, and they should work on it. That is all there is to it.
James, do you find Ghanaians to be a very difficult lot, or what? That this is a government that has come forward to say sorry, we apologize. All you are going through, we understand. And like Dr. Park said, this was unforeseen. The president is not a soothsayer to have predicted whatever, and it's come on us, and he says we're sorry, but tells you that we are taking step 1, 2, 3 to sort things out for you to be comfortable. And yet people are saying, take your apology, we don't want it.
Sorry, Dr. Apak was spot on when he said, yes, the problems we are faced with at the moment are due to certain unforeseen circumstances, and that the president is not a soothsayer. That statement has not been impeached by anybody.
Somebody was
I have listened carefully.
You know Dr. Akufo-Addo?
Yes.
You know him?
Yes.
He says it's self-inflicted.
Nana
Akufo-Addo said it's Ghana made.
Sami, I have had occasion to disagree with Dr. Akufo-Addo when I appeared on your newspaper analysis program a few days ago. I have a serious problem with the assertions of Nanadu that the energy crisis we are faced with at the moment are self-inflicted. Now, Sami, if you listen to all the analysis people are making carefully, I am yet to hear anybody say the current crisis are as a result of negligence on the part of government. How does they try to rubbish the president's statement when he delivered himself on the State of the Nation in Parliament recently, that Ghanaians, some people had short memories and that the crisis were a thing of the past? I mean, how can somebody fault the president for making that statement? Because at the time the president made that statement, we had not started experiencing a fluctuation in terms of the supplies that we receive from the West African Gas Pipeline Company. It only started not too long ago, and quite naturally, some of our thermal plants had to shut down.
We had a contract with them. They were not supplying to the dictates of their contract, and yet we kept quiet.
Yes, the reason why we kept quiet was because at least we could fire some of our thermal plants to at least generate enough energy to be able to feed the needs of Ghanaians up to 2,000 megawatts. But the moment the shortfall became so pronounced, I mean, figures dropped to as low as 30 million standard cubic feet, then we started having problems. That is the volume a plant like Asogoli alone needs to be able to operate. And yet that plant operates solely on gas. And so when people come out there to say the president lied to Ghanaians and so on, you want to ask yourself whether these are objective analysis of what is really happening on the ground. And I always prefer to take us back to our own record and history. You see, in 2006, President Akufo was faced with a similar problem when water in the Akosombo Reservoir went very low because of the low rainfall amounts we had recorded over the period. President Akufo came out, and this is the news bulletin. I can read it for the benefit of our listeners.
Your listeners are not interested in this.
No, it's important.
Interested in the present.
It is important. Let us remind ourselves about the past, because the president made a statement which was the subject of criticism, that he had lied to Ghanaians and that the president is incapable of solving the problem.
He had promised to solve it, and he had told the whole nation that he had solved it.
Yes, he had. And I made it very clear that we didn't have this problem until
what's the point of the comparison you are seeking to make?
The point I'm trying to make is that President Akufo had this to say to Ghanaians when he was faced with a similar crisis. He said, and this is how it was, President Akufo was reported in 2006. President Akufo said the problem was not the result of negligence on the part of government or for want of it doing the right thing. He therefore appealed to the people to be patient with the system as efforts were being made to fix it. President Akufo said it was to help to ensure adequate supply of affordable energy to drive the economy that the government raised a $40 million loan to buy into the West Africa gas pipeline project. The project, delayed because of the volatile situation in the Nigerian Delta region, will now come on stream by the first quarter of 2007.
That should be sufficient.
Right. Now,
what did you say then?
Sorry. Let me build my point. You have your turn. Now, the point I'm making is that, as Dr. Park rightly put it, this government in the short term think that we must negotiate with the Nigerians to increase gas supplies. Now, the Nigerians may have genuine concerns, and I am privy to some information. Quite recently, I attended a summit in London, and I met some of the officials. I won't name them because the discussions we had were very confidential. But there are challenges with regards to the security of the pipelines. Time would outnumber, the pipelines have been breached over the period by the activities of pirates. Now, some of our neighbors obviously do not have the capacity to police these pipelines. It is time we brought our navies together, to cooperate, to protect the pipelines. That is one factor you can't run away from. In August last year, when we had problems, it was as a result of a pirate ship which ran into the pipeline when it was being pursued by the Togolese authorities, which resulted in the crisis we faced at the time. Today, they are saying that there are breaches. So these are the genuine concerns we should all address our minds to try to find lasting solutions. If we are not able to do that, we would continue to face some of these problems. But in the long term, this government has invested heavily in the gas infrastructure at the Tuabo. Just as President Akufo found it necessary to raise a loan of 40 million to buy into the West African gas pipeline project, this president also has the vision to see to the early completion of the Tuabo gas infrastructure.
What do you say about this?
A whopping amount of 750 million is
right.
being invested there.
Well, what do you say about this, Dr. Park? And the two of you, I find, you're from government, and you are refusing to accept any, blame whatsoever in respect of planning. And when I quoted the Member of Parliament for Pro, and who is also the chairman of the Parliament Select Committee on Mines and Energy, Dr. Akufo-Addo, he put the blame squarely on lack of planning. And he was saying that stakeholders ought to have planned. Now, this is what he told Evans Mensah on Joy. He said the finance ministry had failed to release funds for other contingency plans, and that is what has led us to where we are now. Otherwise, this could have been avoided. So you see why some will blame, the administration.
Well, first of all, I fail to understand the source of this information. But as far as I know, I don't have any iota of truth to profess in support of the claim that he has made. And therefore, it makes it very difficult for me to say that what he has said is justified. But I definitely reject the suggestion that we are where we are as a result of planning by this government. I mean, if you look at the president's pronouncements over the last few years, at least last year and this year, the issue of generating enough energy not only to satisfy our domestic need, but to even export, has been a very important one.
Right.
And therefore, it tells you that a lot of planning has been done. And that is why when he says that, look, these are short-term challenges largely exacerbated by the unforeseen, if you like, connivance of the effort to double the generational capacity by one of our thermal plants, which requires work to be done at a time when the gas that is coming to us from Nigeria is or was at its abysmally low point, versus when we are also having the other plant which has to be fixed. So, I mean, this that I've narrated, doubling the generational capacity is planning. Fixing a plant that has broken down, quite clearly, requires some planning. The portion that we don't have control over, by and large, in this three-pronged situation that has led us to a three-pronged event that has led us to where we are, is the low volumes of gas that comes to us from Nigeria, to which James has very eloquently explained. So these are not conditions that, would suggest that there is a lack of planning. But the medium to long term is for us to have our independence. And so that can only come about.
What will you tell Ghanaians on the back of the apology that was sent?
That they should be patient, and that government is working very assiduously to address that. The fact that the Minister for Petroleum and Energy was dispatched to Nigeria immediately should tell you that this is something that government attaches a lot of importance to. The fact that, oh, senior, you are trying to break my flow here. the fact that, another delegation has actually gone to China to bring on board another component specifically to ensure that we are on time in terms of completing the gas infrastructure. I should also tell you that government is very serious about tackling this issue, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, because it has implications for the economic gains of this country and the transformational change that the president continues to talk about.
I think your final words on this briefly, but Kimba in Suhum says something. Ghana is simply almost grinding to a halt. Watching Newsfile is becoming difficult. My lights have gone off twice. Currently, there is no light at almost the whole of Suhum. What exactly is happening to this country of ours? Aviaka, I hope I got your name right, says, Was the drop in supply of gas sudden? We should stop defending our failures by saying we are one of the top in Africa. Al-Hassan in Tamale says, a drowning man sees every straw or weak stem as relief to hold on to from drowning. I don't see how Nigeria can help address the insufficient supply of gas to Ghana. I have never been comfortable with the arrangement to get gas from Nigeria. If our own gas supply will delay, I suggest we turn our attention to other nations, even if they are far away from us. It is better than Nigeria. Chureko says, you are living in a country called Ghana, which lies 5 degrees north of the equator, and you cannot produce the necessary energy to power your industries. What else do you want us to do for you as a government? Says greed is our hallmark. We will not get anywhere with this. Brian Hohoy says Africans must unite to fight terrorism. I believe the gas problem can be attributed to the Boko Haram issue. Peter Odomko says, please ask the energy minister if Ghana owe the Nigerian government, since the government owes every institution in this country. Muhammad Abbas says, Samson, the institution managing our energy sector has failed us after Nkrumah left us. Lack of proper planning and load forecasting has been their problem. Go to the north and assess the rate of windfall and wind flow and sunshine, yet no single expert within our energy sector is thinking about using renewable hybrid energy as alternative. Well, I can tell you what you are talking about is in the manifesto of all the political parties. In fact, I have been at the KNUST program that they organize every election, and they have spoken at length, giving us very lofty plans about renewable
but we've
energy.
solar in the Bronco.
The NDC is talking about Energy for All 2016, is it?
Yes.
We'll see. Now, Kuku, the very final point on this, and we should be looking forward to how we manage in the present situation. Forget about all the inefficiencies of the VRA, ECG, or whoever they are.
Accusing me of doing mischief.
President Akufo had raised is it 40 million or so to buy equity in the West Africa gas pipeline project. He had gone to China to contract loan for the construction of the Bui Dam and so many other things. The Sakem project, which I'm told has now been re-engineered at, is a con. All those things were ongoing whilst we were having these challenges, and our friends
will not give any credit.
Response was that of cynicism. And I asked my brother, and I agree, we should move forward. But I asked him a question he didn't answer. And I've been hearing Asampa, we've been playing back some parliamentary proceedings where my own brother Arun Edrusu is captured so well. That was their response to both short-term and long-term plans by the Akufo administration to cure the energy mischief. But I agree, we might as well put that behind us and focus on the new challenges and deal with the issue. Let them look, and I mean government, look for cash to buy light crude oil to power some of those plants whilst we wait for the gas to come online. Let them look for the cash. There's cash in this country. Okay,
Baba in Tamale says, Russians supply America and Europe with gas, but they face these problems. Let's go to final words. 1 minute or less.
Well, you are elected to solve problems. You come pass the buck and complain, or sometimes come and apologize to people. I've been taunted us that we have short memories.
Well, Sabi, I think that the government is doing all it can within its power to reasonably find solutions to the problems we are faced with. We do ask Ghanaians to be patient with us whilst we fix the problems. Very soon, Etuabo would start producing gas And when we're able to generate 120 a million,
the trouble that others are saying, experts are saying, is a hoax.
Well, I disagree with whoever said that. But let's
as regards the June deadline you are giving, because there's no money to do the wires that you need, the pipelines.
Well, as Dr. Pak
from
said,
to join
Dr. Pak said, we have dispatched a team to go and facilitate the early release of funds for us to complete the project.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I don't get a last word.
You spoke last before I got to him, and I'm sure you spoke well.
I guess
let's leave it there.
But we can also complement the effort by, you know, putting off our gadgets if and when we have the opportunity to have lights.
Thank you very much.
Them.
The show has been brought to you by the kind sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, welcome to the new world. It's been brought to you by Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Errata Motors, that is where you get the best vehicles at the best prices. Star Assurance, that is your solid partner. And of course, Sasso Kum Intuntum Preko. My outfit, as always, is provided for by Latida. Call Latida on 0265 650 918 or 024 336 444, and they will make sure you look very, very, very sharp. Now, my guest have been Abdul Malik Kwekubako Jr. He is the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Dr. Clement Park is a presidential staffer. Mr. Aikwe Otu is a former Attorney General. He's a private legal practitioner. James Agalga is MP and Deputy Interior Minister. I'm Samson Ladi Ayanini. This show is repeated at 9:30 on this same platform on television. You can also catch it in London and say thanks. I'm reminded to say thanks to our listeners, our viewers across Freetown, Sierra Leone, including all other places in the sub-region. Thank you very much for making this your #1 dial. Now, the people who have helped in bringing the show to you, Yaya Abubakar has been directing television. Emmanuel Ante has been assisting with production. So is Samuel Odame and Nicholas Opoku. This was produced under the executive leadership of Sedem Ofori. Have a good afternoon.